everyone, and welcome back to this channel. My name is Kayla. I'm an occupational therapy student at the University of St. Augustine for Health Sciences. Welcome to video 4 of the educational video series talking about disaster planning for people with spinal cord injury. This video is going to talk about sheltering in place. As always, you should always make decisions on what's best for you and your family, but also take the recommendations of your local and state government officials before, during, and after a disaster. We'll go ahead and review on what sheltering in place looks like. Sheltering in place means to stay in a safe spot during a disaster. This may look like getting to the spot before a disaster occurs and staying throughout, or staying in the space that you're already occupying. It's important to recognize that sheltering in place can be someone's only option. Sheltering in place can also be safer than evacuating, so it's important to be weather aware and listen to your local and state government officials, as I mentioned many times before. You should always consider the safety and integrity of the shelter you decide to stay in. So that could be either your house, your friend's house, your place of work, a family member's house, or even a local and state government-run facility. Some other things to consider when you plan to shelter in place is how you're going to get to safety in the event you do have to evacuate post-natural disaster, or how you'll get to safety if there's an immediate threat inside the shelter. Another thing that you might want to consider is if there is a designated room or area that you can go to be safe in. And what I mean by that is there a room with no windows or in the middle of the home that you can pass through with your wheelchair or with your family and pets, so you can be safe in the event of severe weather. If you also have a storm shelter or a basement that you can go in, you might want to think about the accessibility of getting inside of the basement and getting out of the basement. Can you get down into the basement? Do you need help getting into the basement? Can you get your pets and your children into the basement? Are all questions that you should think about. You should also consider putting things in the basement that might be beneficial to you in case you're stuck there for a long time. In the event that you need to shelter in place at work, you should be aware of the emergency plan that your employer has to offer for you. This is a piece where self-advocacy comes into play. You need to think about what floor of the workplace you're on and what would you do if the elevators go out. How will you get out to safety in the event that you need to evacuate? If your employer does have an emergency plan, you need to have this conversation and make sure that you and your safety needs are met during that conversation. The Americans with Disabilities Act does not require a place of employment to have an emergency plan. However, if they do have an emergency plan, people with disabilities must be included and not discriminated against. If you work in a multi-story building, you need to consider what might happen if a power outage occurs. How will you get out if you need to get to safety after sheltering in place? You can ask things about how they might be able to assist you down the stairs if you need that assistance, or if you can hold an evacu chair at your place of employment. I'm going to insert a picture on what an evacu chair might look like just to give you an idea. In this part of the video, we're going to talk about supplies that you might need when you shelter in place. It's never too late to start gathering emergency supplies. You need to keep in mind that if there was a mandatory evacuation or even sometimes a voluntary evacuation order and you decided to shelter in place, you might not have access to emergency personnel. So some basic things that you might want to keep with you is batteries, non-perishable food, flashlight, and candles. You might also want to keep a supply of water. You should at least have 3 gallons per person. You should also consider if you need distilled water for any of your medical devices such as a CPAP. Make sure that your pets and children are always a part of the plan, so think about what they may need as well. Think about water for your pets, food for your pets, formula for your infants, as well as baby food. Whenever you decide to keep your sheltering in place objects, I would also include temperature regulation objects, especially with someone who has a spinal cord injury. I would keep things like cooling blankets, hot warmers, the ones that you can activate without electricity, as well as something like Florida water or chemical ice packs that can help cool you down in the event that an electricity outage is happening and you don't have access to AC or heat. Another tip that I like to tell people, especially if they have a basement or storm shelter, is to keep that bedside commode in there. If you were given a bedside commode after rehab and you no longer use it, or if you have multiple, it's okay to bring one in that storm shelter in case you need to stimulate your bowel and bladder. You should always be doing routine checks and maintenance on things that you have around your home, as well as your assistive technology. Things like a generator or your HVAC system are going to be vital in case of emergency. You or someone you know should also be checking your smoke and carbon monoxide alarms as well. Make sure your battery-operated assistive technology or your wheelchair is charged at all times in the event of a power outage. If you plan on sheltering in place and using a generator if a power goes out, make sure you know the 2020 rule. It's that the generator should be 20 feet away from your house and you should wait 20 minutes before refueling. And as always, if you are using a gas-operated generator, make sure you have gas and enough gas to last you for a while, or you have someone who is able to leave and go get gas when it's safe again. Along those same lines of using a gas-operated generator, you need to make sure that you have carbon monoxide alarms in case the fuel enters your house. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or ways we can improve the video series, go ahead and leave a comment or email me, which I'm going to have in the description box below.